Hi, my name is Jason Dang, and the journal article that I'll be presenting to you today is titled Self-Enhanced False Memory Across the Lifespan. So, have you ever experienced an event that felt so true, but turns out it never actually occurred? Well, this is because of false memories, and it can be formed through many ways. One of them being information being incorrectly coded, another being interference of new and old memories, and lastly, mixture of true and false information can also cause false memories. Now, a fun fact is that Loftus in 1995 conducted an experiment and was able to convince 25% of her participants that they were a lost child inside of a mall when they were full-grown adults. And if you look in figure 1, it is a brain imaging data that shows greater false memories resulting from three brain mechanisms. So in the blue, it's the prefrontal, the red is the temporal pole, and the green is the visual cortex. So in this journal article, it will mention a lot about the Deese-Roediger-McDermott paradigm, and it's a psychological experiment to study false memories. And participants are to study a list of related words. So if you look into figure 2 on the left side where it says study, there are four words: candy, sour, sugar, and bitter. And basically, the participants are to study and try to remember those words. And afterwards, they would have to recall the words from the list by asking if they've seen the word before. For example, they'd be asked if they've seen the word sugar, flag, sweet, or candy before. And there will always be a lure word, which is a word that's related to the words in the list that they studied, but wasn't present during the time. And participants would mistakenly remember it as a word they've seen before, even though they haven't. And this shows that memory can adapt by focusing on the gist of events. So in my review in literature, Wang and Otard in 2019 found that self-referencing when using the DRM paradigm led to higher false recognition rates in non-presented lure words. And in 2013, Rosa and Gutches found that high self-descriptive words led to higher false alarms of lures than low self-descriptive words. And in 1997, Norman Satcher found that older adults are more susceptible to false memories of lures than younger adults in the DRM paradigm. And for my gap of literature, it is unknown whether self-enhanced false memory can extend to older adults or children. Research questions and hypotheses. So my three research questions are: 1. What is the impact of self-reference on associative false memory in children, young adults, and older adults? 2. How do the mechanisms of false memory differ across age groups in terms of recollection versus familiarity? And 3. Can the self-enhanced false memory effect observed in young adults be extended to children and older adults? And these would lead to the hypothesis that self-referencing might affect false recollection and familiarity differently in different age groups. In the methodology, there were two phases, the first one being the study phase. And in this phase, there were different age groups of participants. So there were 29 children, 35 younger adults, and 39 older adults. And each individually would be enclosed in a room and given a list with the words. So the list would either have a word in their own name, a word in the name Li Ming, or a word with a red square. And then it would shuffle 5 more times, and then they would have to remember all of those. And then after they would remember those, they were given filler questionnaires irrelevant to the study as a distraction. So in the second part of the methodology is the recognition phase. So 5 minutes later, they were given the words. They would go onto a computer and a word would pop up with either their name, the name Li Ming, or a red square, and then they would have to press either the buttons remember, know, or new. Remember meaning they slightly remember, but they're not 100% sure. Know meaning they 100% sure know that they saw the word previously and they studied it, or a new word is a word that they haven't seen before. And for my results, if you look in figure 4, there are three different bar graphs. One that's dark gray, which is self-reference, which is their own name. One that's a light gray, titled other reference, which was the name Li Ming, and neutral being the red square. And the graph shows that people were more likely to have a false memory when information was self-referenced. As seen in the chart, the dark gray are higher above the lighter in the white bar graph. So it also showed that younger adults had the highest false recognition rate and that children and older adults showed lower rates. Additionally, they measured recollection and familiarity. So, recollection involves retrieving a specific detail in the context of a past event, while familiarity is just a general feeling of knowing something without having to recall a specific detail. So, if you look in Figure 5, the top graph represents false recollection rates, and the bottom graph represents false familiarity rates. And if you look at the left side, which represents self-reference, you'll notice that the bar has raised higher than other references. And this shows that it led to better true recollection and true familiarity across all groups. And they also shows that younger adults were more prone to false recollection when self-referencing, as if you look at the top graphic on the left side, younger adults represented in the light gray had the greatest increase in the bar graph. And additionally, older adults were more susceptible to false familiarity when self-referencing, since if you look at the bottom graph, older adults represented in the white had the greatest amount of change between both bar graphs of other reference and self-reference. And lastly, children did not show much of an effect on false recollection and familiarity, as their bar graph increased like very so slightly, which doesn't show much significance. So for my discussion conclusions, we're going back to my research questions. The first one being, what is the impact of self-reference on associative false memory in children, younger adults, and older adults? Results showed that it varied. Children had no impact, while younger adults increased in false memories and adults increased in familiarity. My second research question was, how do the mechanisms of false memory differ across age groups in terms of recollection versus familiarity? And results show that recollection plays a stronger role in false memories for younger adults, while familiarity is more influential for older adults. And lastly, my third research question was, can the self-enhanced false memory effect observed in young adults be extended to children and older adults? And results show that the self-enhanced false memory observed in young adults is not fully extended to children or older adults. For recommendations in future studies, recommendations include self-relevance of false memory may be a relevant factor to consider when evaluating potential risk factors of false memories, and for future studies, it'd be nice to examine the role of self and false memory using paradigms with more ecological validity. These are my references, and thank you for listening to my presentation. And again, my name is Jason Day.